I'm sharing important information in this live today about health, your health, my health, energy. Everything is energy, including your health. You understand, many of you, that you're here for a reason. You're here with a purpose. It's so important that we're healthy. I'm going to be sharing some of my story with you today, some of my own journey, my challenges, how I came to be the way I am today. And I want to hear from you as well. Like all these live broadcasts, I want them to be engaging. That is why I open it up and do the live streams, opposed to, hello Aaron, thanks for coming in, and Aaron will be moderating today. It's why we do these lives, so that people can engage, people can ask questions, and together we can share opinions, ideas, and discover how we can live our most optimal lives. Before I get into today's contents, I want to hear from you. Let me know what city, what country you're joining me from. I would imagine most of our North American friends are asleep right now because it is the night time over there. So we have Aaron's joining also from Melbourne. Welcome, Aaron. I think we'll have a lot of Australians that are joining this, and perhaps you're just watching the replay. Even within the replay, you can go to comments and just let me know. I want to hear from you. I want to answer some of your questions on health today. There might be questions that you've got that relate to spirituality. It might be physical health. It might be mental health. We're talking health. Health is holistic. Spirit, soul, and body. We often neglect that. Welcome, Susanna, I think, from Queensland, Australia. Obviously, we're going to have a few Australians join because the time frame is very suitable for Australians. I think it's just coming into the evening time. I know you're an hour behind us there in Queensland. But let me know in the chat who is joining before we get into my story and some of the things that I want to share about health today. I love hearing from you. And these live streams are done live for a reason. They're done live so that we can interact together. I can answer your questions and we can share the journey together rather than you just watching another YouTube video. Much rather do these live. Who likes live videos where they can engage in real time? Let me know. Most content online is recorded, edited, scripted. I don't like to script anything. In fact, I think it's really important to really allow whatever comes through oneself in the moment. I think this is how certainly the greatest teachers that have taught me operated. They operate in this flow state. Now you can call it anything you want. Higher self, God, spirit. You can call it Karen if you want to call it something. It doesn't matter what we call it. They're just labels. When you operate in this, like, that I like to define as divinity, your true essence, there is a greater quality that emerges, that communicates, that expresses itself. It is way more intelligent, way more articulate than anything that we can construct analytically or that we can rehearse using words and language to define something. But for the purposes of our time together today, you'll notice that I'll be using lots of story, analogy, examples so that you can better grasp some of these concepts. All right, who else do we have before we get going? And remember, you can let us know in the replay. I know all of our American friends will be watching the replay, so let us know where you're joining from. I actually do care. I read all of the comments and the messages, and I respond to those messages and comments that come through, as you can probably see from the videos that I create. Okay, health. I mentioned in yesterday's live stream, my health has elevated over the last about 15 months. Because over the last 15 months, I've lost a significant amount of weight. For those that use our system here in Australia, will know this as kilos. I lost 15 kilos of fat inflammation in my body. And I feel so much more alive. I'm energetic. You can hear it in the cadence of my voice. I have lots of energy to work and train and exercise and travel the world and do all the things that I do because I'm healthy. A lot of people that are spiritual, healers, practitioners, they're always busy doing the work, which is wonderful. However, it's been my observation through the practitioners I've worked with, the clients that I've had, some of the people that come for sessions to see me, that they are neglecting their own physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Now, I think this is really sad. How do I know that? I was one of them. My work really ramped up during the COVID lockdown, the pandemic. And that is where I spent a lot of time putting together my social media, my YouTube channel, creating content, researching. And I was putting all of my energy into creating for others. And what I was doing was neglecting myself. And when we neglect ourselves, eventually we will succumb to neglect. I'm speaking to not only your physical health, but your spiritual health, your mental health. We need to be balanced. A lot of us struggle with balance, including myself. When I approach any given day, I have to maintain a sense of balance. I have to do all of the things that you do. One of the biggest things I do every day is pick up my dog's messes. Who knows what I'm talking about? Who's got pets? Always cleaning it up. I live in a small apartment and have a space that my dog uses outside, and I'm constantly cleaning that up. Not very glamorous, is it? I love people that have pets because I think that it's very hard to have an ego when you're cleaning up poo-poo and wee-wees. Who knows that? In fact, I was thinking this today. I just like the energy of people that have pets more. I think they're more empathetic people. They're connected to nature. They're getting into a flow with the natural world by coexisting with their animals. Isn't it funny, those people that say they don't like animals? I always wonder about that. Some people say they didn't grow up with an animal, so they're afraid of them. How much are we afraid of in the world? You know what the biggest fear is? The biggest fear that we all have. And this may surprise you when you hear it. I wonder if any of you will guess what it is. But the biggest fear that we all have is of our own divinity, believe it or not, our own God self. It has been suppressed through religion, power structure, government for thousands of years. Our divinity, our God self, our true essence, most of us are terrified to even look inside. Why is it that so many people look to the outside all of the time for some form of remedy, whether it be medication, whether it be for a reading? Within spirituality, people want readings, they want clarity. Very rarely do they go inside and look within. Why? I've come to learn that they're afraid of what they might see. We say identify with the outward form, that we convince ourselves that we are the exterior, our mind, our body. And yet you are not your mind. You are not your body. You have a mind. You have a body. I'll take that one step further. You are animating your physical body, and your mind is a tool. You're either using that tool well, with precision, with direction, consciously, or you're just slapping around and hoping for the best. Who lived their life hoping for the best? Hoping we'll get lucky. Hoping it just might work out. Bad news is that we don't live in a random universe. The good news is that we live in an intentional universe, and the further good news to that is that we are creating our own experience. Some love to hear that because finally they understand that they're not a victim to life, that they're playing a role or a part out. Boy, do you become powerful when you realize that you are the power you seek. Who's had that experience? I know Aaron, who is moderating over in Maui, had a powerful spiritual awakening where he remembered who he was. And through remembering, he's able to access this God self, this higher self, this divinity in which we all are. Did I live this way for most of my life? No, I did not. I, like so many of you, grew up with lots of trauma and lots of suffering and lots of isolation and lots of criticism from others, but mostly towards myself. Some people will have what is called a satori, an instant awakening, where they remember, where they tap into their divinity. It's defined in the Japanese language as an instantaneous awakening. There are those that I've heard of in spiritual circles like Eckhart Tolle, who had a Satori moment where suddenly he awakened, and remembered who he was, dropped form identity, dropped ego identity, and remembered. Teacher Byron Katie is another one of those individuals that had a Satori moment. In great suffering, she awoke from the dream, from the illusion, and remembered. But for the vast majority of us, this awakening is a slow and a gradual awakening. Mine started 17 plus years ago. And it was a slow evolution, one step to the next book, to the next teaching, until today. What happened for me when I was in Maui only weeks ago? Who's heard of the beautiful island of Maui? My great teacher, Wayne Dyer, called Maui home. In fact, it was the place that he transcended this physical realm into the non-physical. Wayne Dyer made Maui famous with many people in the spiritual community all around the world. Wayne had wonderful conferences in Maui where people would come from all over the world and listen to Wayne share and tell stories. And people would come to do the work and heal. I feel so privileged and blessed that when I was in Maui, I had some powerful synchronicities that showed me that my work would continue beyond one retreat in Maui and would be a continuation of my work. And I'm so glad about that. I'm so grateful for that gift. Because Maui is one of those places, if you don't resonate with its energy, it will, and the locals will tell you this, spit you out energetically. If you are not in alignment with the energetic nature of the island, you'll be literally spat out. Maui is one of those important places. Now let me read some of these comments. Susanna from Queensland. I agree about the pet. I'm living in a government house. For those that are in the UK, that is a council house. Small one bedroom. Unfortunately, I've not been... I'm just reading on because there's a few comments from Susan. I am 78 and alone. Let me stop you there, Susan. You are never alone. You might be physically alone. Sounds like you've got a pet. So there we go. Let's get into a more positive mindset. You've got your beautiful pet that is an aspect of the divine that I'm sure loves you more than anything else. And you have an unseen team that is always there with you. It's just that you can't see them physically. These are your guides, your angels, often your ancestors that have transitioned into the non-physical. But we are never alone. We always have help. Here's a little secret. If you don't ask out loud for their help and assistance to intervene, they won't help you. Because you yourself have to invite them in. Your own free will, they won't interfere with. Now, you can't just think it. You can't just think a thought, please help me, angels, please help me, guides. You need to say it. You need to speak it. Boy, they love to help when you ask. Some people say, oh, I tried it once, Paul. I asked once and I didn't get help. Not always do they respond in the way that we want them to. But if it is for our highest good, and if it is in alignment with our soul's purpose, boy, will they come in and assist. I want that to be your new affirmation, Susanna, that you aren't alone. And it doesn't matter if you're living in a council home, a government home, a rented home, an owned home. The human condition is the same for all of us. Now, I've worked with some of the most famous people in the world, to people that live in situations like you've just described. And I have found time and time again that the human condition is the same regardless of if we're occupying a prison cell or a palatial home. The analytical mind, the conditioned mind, loves to be able to project and say that if only I had more, then I would be different. If only I had more money. If only I had a better body. If only I was younger. Whatever excuse that you have today, you're going to have the same excuse tomorrow. The only time that my life began to change was when I began to affirm something different for myself. The very definition of insanity is to keep thinking and doing the same and expect a different result. Now, that doesn't matter if you're an older individual in your late 70s or if you're a young individual. The universe does not have favorites. The universe simply responds to you. Your outward life is a projection of what you project to it, like you would a mirror. Last time I checked, when I look in the mirror at home, I continually see the image that stands before it. Sometimes I wish I saw something different or better occasionally. I'm learning that it's much better to accept what is before it, and then if you want to make changes, work on implementing those. The universe works like your mirror. It just reflects to you what you are, not what you want, not what you hope or pray for, but what you are. And this is the good news. We can project something different. Susanna, if you've been projecting the same old stuff out there and getting the same stuff back, the good news that you have is you can change the projection because you're creating it. You might say, but I didn't want to create this situation. I didn't want to create this limitation. I wouldn't have chosen this. Before I realized what I know now, this information that I'm sharing, this consciousness that I'm operating, I did the same. I used to blame other people. In the beginning of my life, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I blamed my parents. Into my late 30s, And I held great resentment toward my father, believing my mother at a very young age. I was 3 years old when that happened. Not only did it devastate my mother, who wasn't working at the time, had to learn how to do a career, start a job that she wasn't familiar at doing, at the same time as raising 2 children on her own. It was very challenging. So I held resentment toward my father, thinking that all of the challenges that I had, all of the financial challenges, had to be on him. Not only did I project the blame onto him, I projected it onto the stepmother that I had that had an affair with my father and wasn't very nice to me in turn. And so I held that resentment for 30 plus years, 35 years, until I realized the truth that I've come to know now is that the only way I can change my reality, the only way I can get out of a situation of anger, of resentment, of victimization, is to release, to let go of that thinking. So many people I work with and I communicate with identify with their story. And they've told it 100 times. They tell themselves their story over and again, and they make themselves captive to the thinking, to the situation. The greatest message that any great sage or teacher or wisdom tradition teaches us is that you are powerful. Jesus said when he taught that greater things shall even the least of you do than I do. What was he communicating there? What was he pointing towards? That the same divinity that operated through Jesus or the Christ operates in you. The Buddha also, through story, gave this example of a beggar on the street that was looking externally for money and begging until a master came along his way and told him to look underneath the box in which he had been sitting on all those years. For him then to eventually look in that box and discover that there was great wealth. What does that example say to us? It says that everything that you're seeking out there, everything that you've been seeking is in here. The divinity that Christ operated in, the power, the divine nature exists in all of us. And that is the greatest fear, isn't it? To actually look inside and see what that divinity is. Who would you be without your story? Maybe we've had the same narrative for 30 years. I know Aaron's 30. That narrative, Aaron, that is played out in your mind all these years about being inadequate. When we have discussions in person, I always say, is it true? Is it who you really are? Or is that just something that you came to believe through the conditioning of experience and what others have said, what others have projected upon you? The only power that has is when you believe it, when you affirm it. because we create our entire lives, good, bad, and everything that is indifferent. When it comes to physical health, you choose what you put in your mouth. Generally, we choose what we put in our mouth through what we believe about ourselves. If we believe that we are unworthy and no good and inadequate, we tend to feed ourselves food that is also inadequate for a healthy body. When I believed I was inadequate, when I believed I wasn't good enough, I used to feed myself junk foods. Not only would I feed myself junk foods, I would feed myself junk thoughts. I would hang out with people that spoke negatively about themselves, about others. Who are you hanging around with? Who are you listening to? What are you putting in your mouth? What is coming out of your mouth when you speak? See, the mouth is very important because it's this tool that we have for creation. The breath comes in the nose and the mouth, and we breathe it into our lungs, and then it goes out of our mouth and our nostrils. This is the very thing that is keeping you in this physical realm. Your breath. Your breath, your words, and what you put into your body all through your mouth is really creating everything for you. You're either putting in healthy, nourishing foods that is elevating your physical health, or it is destroying your physical health. Some of us are, and by no fault of our own, because this is a greater thing, I won't talk to all of the reasons for this, but there are many of those in society that profit greatly from us being unhealthy and sick, because we become dependent upon medications, dependent on certain foods, that has a disastrous effect on our physicality. I appreciated your speech and have made me feel better and comfortable with myself. Thank you. When we listen to messages like this, not only is it just something to fill in time, but it helps you remember. I'm not sharing anything with you that is original information that you won't hear elsewhere. I'm simply reminding you of who you are. And everything is a reminder. When I have hypnosis sessions with people, it's not that they're so much discovering information or learning new information. It's that they're remembering the information that they've forgotten. You don't have to learn anything new. You simply have to remove the blinders, the blocks, and go within and remember who you are. And to see through the eyes of divinity, and to see yourself as not separate from divinity, but a individual expression of divinity. Because of the nature of these live streams and the arising of the higher aspect that communicates through me, Often I don't cover everything that I think I'm going to cover, but that is perfect because tomorrow I'm going to talk more about supplementation and healthy eating and what we should be nurturing our bodies with. If you enjoy this, please give it a like, and if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe so that you can get more of this content. You'll also get notified by YouTube of when I do go live so that you can tune in live and you can be a part of the conversation that happens here. I'm going to see all of you tomorrow. It'll probably be about the same time, an hour maybe earlier or so. But I'll see you tomorrow. Much love.